this week's RD to RD live show. I am excited to have Anna as a guest today, and we are tackling a topic that kind of transcends a lot of what we do in the online world, which is writing. And whether you're working on modules for an online course, or you're writing blogs, or you're doing paid writing, we're getting organized, staying on task, and we're going to dive a lot into how to get paid writing work, but this will apply no matter kind of what area of the online world you're working in, and we're going to cover some tips and tricks. So a little bit of background information again. The live show is every Wednesday at 1 o'clock with the goal of shining a light on topics and skills that as registered dietitians trying to be successful in the online world, sharing our wisdom and also growing our business at the same time. So thank you, Anna, for coming on today. We are going to kick things off. I always like to let people give a little bit of background about themselves. None of us got to where we are overnight. Oftentimes it's a windy journey, and we get some lessons along the way. So I'd love to hear how you got to where you are today and how you got passionate about writing. How did you fall into this area of dietetics?
Sure. I just want to say, excuse me, we've been battling a plague here at my house for 2 weeks. If I cough, I have water, and I just want to apologize in advance for that.
Thank you for coming on, even though you're in recuperation mode. I really appreciate it.
I'm feeling much better, but you never know. Anyway, yes. I apologize. But I've been an RD for about 11 years. I was really, really passionate about doing outpatient counseling when I first started. So my first job was in health education, and then I relocated, so I went into clinical because that job was just closer to my house. And that was kind of a bit of a challenge for me. And about the 5-year mark of being an RD, I was just over it. Like, I didn't want to do outpatient counseling anymore because it was too emotionally draining for me. Like, I wanted to move in with my patients and change their whole life and do all of this. And I struggled with not being able to do that. And then the clinical part, I just started to feel like I was like a monkey on a computer all day, not really making any major difference. Nobody read my notes. Nobody cared what I said. So I went to Brazil and dropped everything for about 3 months. And I was like, what I've always wanted to do is write. I've always wanted to be a writer. Since I was in my early 20s, I wanted to be a writer. So I thought, how can I do this? And very lucky for me, I had been following the blog of Agli Jacob. She's another dietitian who wrote the book, Digestive Health with Real Food.
Okay.
And she at the time was making full-time money writing. And she told me, oh, I make full-time money writing. And I was like, what? As an art, really? And so she hooked me up with this, what at the time was called Demand Media. Okay. And they were providing articles for Livestrong and The Nest and things like that. And the articles were very low pay. They were $20 to $30 each. But they had thousands of them for me to write. I would literally sit there and write 10 articles every day.
Wow.
Crank them through this thing. And I started seeing I can get paid to write. So I had to come back from Brazil, quit doing yoga on the beach,
Bummer.
Real life.
Yeah.
And I came back and I just started putting myself out there as a writer. And I put things up on LinkedIn and found an RD in Australia who needed help with writing. And I got onto what used to be Elance and is now Upwork. And I hooked up with Dr. Josh Axe, when he was first starting his website. He was actually one of my first writing clients through that. And I just started kind of building. And that was 5 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been in and out of writing for a while. I taught at the university for a while and wasn't writing quite as much. But since my son was born, he's 2 now, I decided to make it a full-time thing.
Okay.
And so
What I find to be so interesting is, a lot of us follow the path of what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to, whether it's outpatient or acute care, and yet we have this passion perhaps for something else. You said you wanted to be a writer for a long time, and I'm sure you're still working. It's interesting that you're connected to that work. I can see it the way you talk about it. You're pumping out 10 articles a day in this, early on that, you might have been charting on 10 patients, but it isn't your passion work, right? It's not in your zone of genius. And it's amazing when you do the work that, you're called to do and that you're passionate about. It doesn't feel the same as charting on 15 patients, right? So it's really, I think it's, willing to chase what is, what you are passionate about. And you can make a living writing, for those listening in that are.
It was a surprise to me, because that's why I didn't do it, because I thought it wasn't a viable career option.
So I, like to assume that people who are listening don't always have a good background as far as how, of the basics. So I always like to kind of start at ground zero and then build in some levels of complexity. So if I'm interested in earning an income writing, what options are there for me? And if I don't yet have an established, right, I'm not writing for anybody, where do I start? How do I break in, I guess?
Well, the first thing to do is you got to figure out what you want to write and what your end goal is with writing. For me, my end goal was to make money with writing.
Okay.
If you're, excuse me, bad. If your end goal is to promote your private practice or to promote yourself as a dietitian, those are kind of two separate paths. Because then you have to work on getting things with your name on it. If you just want people to pay you to write things, I feel like that's a little bit easier, a little bit simpler.
Okay.
Because there's so much content that needs to be created on the internet. So much content.
So let's dive into this difference. So you're getting your name on it and not getting your name on it. So talk to me about, give me some examples of work you do that's, I don't know how much you can share, but so for people to understand kind of a little bit more of that difference, because I think it's an important point.
Well, work that has your name on it, it could be for obviously other websites. I know that there's dietitians that work for like Authority Nutrition and they put their name on it. I used to work for a website called The List and my name was on those articles. Some of my supplement company clients put my name on the articles because they think that having my name on it makes them look more reputable. But like Dr. Axe, he was building a brand and he didn't want my name on his stuff. And I work for several other dietitians as ghostwriters who just produce so much content that they can't do it all themselves or don't have time or don't want to.
So I see a lot of posts, in different groups for people looking for, and sometimes they're looking for a VA for different activities, but writing is one of those things that people look to outsource. So I think where you're looking to make money. I think this is a really important point that, if you're willing to write, but it's not necessarily going to say Megan Boitano on it, it's not about the credit, it's about the money that you can make if you do enough writing jobs that you can bring in that income versus if you're like Dr. Axe, right? You're, Dr. Susie Dietitian or, Susie Nutrition, you're trying to build your brand that, it depends on what your end goal is. And so I kind of closing that loop there that, so if I'm looking for work, how do I find, let's say I really want to earn an income, right? I'm tired of seeing however many patients I have to see in the acute care environment or wherever I am, and I love writing, and I'm willing to let it be somebody else's name. Where do you find work like that?
I'm kind of the person that I like to put myself everywhere and see kind of what lands. So personally, the first place I would start is job boards.
Okay.
Things like ProBlogger have nutrition jobs on them, Indeed, Craigslist. Like I'm constantly scanning those things to see if there's anything related to nutrition writing. Now, those could be some of the lower paying ones because sometimes people just post things wanting, cheap labor.
Yeah.
That's kind of the criticism of Upwork. I have actually gotten a lot of very high paying jobs off Upwork, but they're not the jobs that are posted. The jobs that are higher paying are the ones that somebody sees your profile on there and they contact you because you're giving a service that they want.
I see.
So they usually, and that's not true 100% of the time because there
Right.
have been people who posted a job and I applied and it was a great client. But I find that the hidden jobs are the ones that are going to pay you and not argue with you about writing things for $5.
So on Upwork, I'm not an expert on Upwork. So talk to me a little bit more about, you can post jobs and then you can create a profile. Has that been a valuable way for you to find work?
That's probably where 80% of my clients came from, especially in the beginning.
Okay.
And now it's gotten to the point where it's more LinkedIn and my website directly.
Okay. So how do you, let's say you need to build up, right? If you don't have any writing experience, you might take some of these, right, small jobs. How do you start to build a profile that's going to get those hidden jobs or, that people are going to see you and say, this is the person I want to contact about writing? What tips do you have for that?
I think it's really about specificity.
Okay.
So being very, very specific about what you do. If you're just a dietitian, like go on there and there's 50 dietitians. You're not really going to differentiate yourself from, what they're looking for, So like for me, I like working with supplement companies and I focus on writing marketing materials for supplement companies. So that's like a specific thing that a supplement company would be looking for. I know another RD who specializes in like vegan diets. And so anybody looking for somebody who has work in vegan diets would be a good, person. That should be a great person for them to contact. So trying to be as specific as possible with what your experience is and what your interests are, so you stand out from all the other RDs. And sure, like I think sometimes that's always scary because you're like, well, I can write anything about nutrition, and that's true, but like you're also competing against so many other people.
Right. Okay. I'm going to let people, if anyone has specific questions about how to build up that profile, feel free we will dive more into this topic, but I have so many things I want to get to with you. So we're going to keep kind of moving along. So how do you pitching? So I think this is, you're competing against everybody else. You just said, there's a sea of potential dietitians. There's only so much work. There's a ton of work, but you have to come, to get the good paying work and to even get any work, you have to pitch yourself. So what tips do you have for being successful with, getting the job, getting the paid writing job?
I think that my husband is probably the one who gave me the best advice about this, is nobody cares about you as much as you do. So don't make it about your experience and like how many certifications you have as an RD. Like that doesn't mean anything to almost anyone. Of course they want to know that you have the RD, but they want to know what you can do for them.
Right.
So like, how are you going to help them? That should be your main focus and not, I'm an RD and I have all this experience and I've done all these things. So I actually have a pitch template on my website that you can get for free. And that's where you start, is with the idea and with focusing on the venue that you're working for or that you're trying to get into.
So walk me through this process. So you'll see something posted on a job board, and typically what, are they saying, I want this specific topic, and you have to submit kind of prior work that shows that you would be a good fit. How does this process happen and how do you tackle it? So let's say you see a job. What are you thinking? How are you approaching it?
I try to like kind of read through the lines and figure out what their pain point is.
Okay.
So usually the person looking, excuse me. Sorry. Usually the person looking for, I apologize, I'm going to get my Ricola. The person looking for somebody has a specific need in mind a specific thing they're looking for. So a lot of times it's to be a native English speaker, or really don't want somebody who's going to just like spin content that's already been created, or want to be sure it's evidence-based, or try to find like what that little tidbit is, that little something that you can say. It's like, I remember one time I saw a job posting that said, we only want people who are vegan, only RDs that are vegan. And so that would be something that you could address. Like, I've been vegan for 10 years, or, you know, if that's the situation.
Right.
Or say I'm a native English speaker, if that's what they're looking for. So try to address like what you see is their main pain point and their main need.
Okay.
Right up front.
The pitch template that you have on your website has some of these elements in it to help you get more prepared to pitch that. Okay, got it.
This is just terrible, this plague.
I know. I'm so sorry that you're sick. It's no fun, especially when the little ones are sick.
Oh my God.
It's so tough. So the whole idea of pitching is a little intimidating to me. So if you're approaching this, so you send in your thing, do you follow up, and then what happens? Like, how does this process typically take place? Like, walk me through what that looks like to be successful in some of those steps in the process.
I would say, unfortunately, there's a lot of kind of just ghosting that goes on. You have to be persistent. I would say to send at least 2 follow-up emails. I was just in talks for somebody to ghostwrite a book for them, and they kind of disappeared for 2 weeks, and I was like, and so I sent 1 email, nothing, and then I sent another email, and that's when I finally got a response. So you kind of have to not be afraid to put yourself out there a little bit. And you may never get a response. Or so I've gotten responses.
How do you organize yourself? So you're pitching a number of jobs, and you're trying to kind of keep track of, who are your leads. There's kind of some organization that goes on there.
Really just an Excel spreadsheet. Nothing magic, And I kind of have like a idea in my mind of what I've got going on, and I don't follow up with every single job, especially when there's been times where I've had no work, so all I did all day was apply for work. You can't. In a perfect world, if I was a perfect person, then of course I would follow up with every single one, but I don't.
So I was really impressed when you talked about how much writing you do. So I think when I read one of your blog posts not too long ago, I think that's how I ended up finding your group. I'm not even sure, but it was on finding time to write. And, I'm someone who's trying to run a couple of different businesses at the same time with a couple of children. And I think the challenge of squeezing in writing when I don't really feel like I have time, or maybe I'm not inspired. You enjoy writing, but how do you structure things so that you can consistently produce that content? It's impressive for me, but how do you do that?
Deadlines help from clients, because I kind of have a very strong work ethic and I don't like to disappoint them. So I just get it done. And the main thing with writing is you just got to sit down and do it. Like, there's no magic formula. There is no secret weapon. I try to look at the clock and say, okay, it's 12:15 right now. I'm going to write until 12:30, and then I can get up and do whatever. There's only snippets of time that you can really focus. And sometimes there's days where the words flow faster than my fingers can go. And sometimes there's days where a 500-word article takes me the entire day.
You have those days too.
It just depends on the topic, and it depends on how I'm feeling, and it depends on a lot of different factors, and it's just, I think that's part of the process. What I see a lot of RDs doing is trying to make it too perfect, and then that's when you waste time.
Okay. And so give some examples of, so when you're talking about mistakes dietitians make, so being too perfect, how do you approach getting, because you're balancing, if you're going to make money, you can't spend an entire day writing one 500-word article. So you're going to have those days, but how do you get over that? It's not quite perfect yet.
Because I think you just need to realize it's never going to be perfect. And what you think is perfect, like you're already above and beyond what your clients know about nutrition. So realize that they're hiring you for your expertise, which you already have. And so, you don't need to back up every single thing you say. I see them like, I'm guilty of this too, like getting lost in the research for hours and like, time is money. Like if you charge $100 for a 500-word article and it takes you the whole day, what did you make after 8 hours?
Right. So how do you, if you have a 500-word article, how do you go about, if it's a topic area that you write in often, you have kind of a maybe more familiarity and it's, easier to write, but how do you decide, okay, I'm going to research this for a certain amount of time, I outline it, then I write it. Obviously I don't write for income at the moment, so this is kind of an area that I'm asking probably very basic questions, but how do you, because you're right, you can't spend all day on $100 article, but how do you structure it so that you can be, you can be profitable, right? You can earn a living.
What I do, to be honest, first is because now I have such a wide array of articles built up, is I go back to other articles I've written on that topic. And I kind of look at what I've written in the past. I look at references that I may have had. And then I have kind of a starting point and an idea of what I'm talking about, because it's hard to keep everything in your head all the time. Sometimes I read articles that are similar about the same topic or studies or whatever it is, just to kind of get the juices flowing. And then I just write it. Like I don't outline it. I don't do anything.
How long does it take you? I'm just curious, as someone who's been doing this for a long time. If you have a 500-word article, on average, I'm sure there's a range, but how long do you spend writing your article?
Maybe an hour.
Really? Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I don't really, like, especially for a short article like that, where it's 500 words, you're not going to dive into the depths of biochemical research on whatever, it's going to be, eat vegetables, they're good. Here's some tasty ones.
Okay. And so this is back to the writing work that's under kind of a ghostwriter. How much of your work would you say is new client work coming in, or existing clients that come back to you, you're kind of their go-to person out of curiosity? And how long does it take to kind of develop those relationships? Is there kind of like some percentage that you would say is healthy, or what you could expect over time?
Right now, because I had a baby 5 months ago, I have not been putting a huge amount of effort into getting new clients. So all of the ones that I have right now, and probably for the last 6 months, are those that kind of come in and out and have been with me for a year or longer. And they haven't been giving me consistent work during that entire time, but they leave and then they come back, and then they leave and they come back. And that seems to be kind of the pattern. I am working on growing my business and turning myself more into a writing service, because I have some other RDs that work for me. And so I will at some point, have to start pitching new clients and getting new business in. But because of everything that's going on, I just haven't.
Yeah, that's actually, no. And, I think we forget, we talked about, I'm obviously a bit of a fanatic about, digital products and the statistics about new customers versus existing customers, that it's, whether you're selling an online product, it takes 6 to 7 times more effort to bring somebody new in the door than keep existing people. And I think that's an important statistic, whether you're selling, an online course or you're selling your writing services, that these can be, you may not getting work every week, but that keeping those, existing customers can repeat purchases, or repeat, contract work.
Yeah, like when we got to Nashville, because I kind of gone dark for like a month, the first thing I did was email all of my previous clients and say, like, I can take work on and hit me up.
And I'm sure. So the vast majority of these clients, you mentioned some job boards, and then you mentioned Upwork. So finding this work, the majority of it coming off of the Upwork site, or other just kind of other places where you can go to kind of find?
Right now, the ones that I have, I found either through Facebook,
Okay.
through other they are other RDs who were like just posted, hey, I'm looking for help, and I am helping them.
Okay.
Through my own group, RDs who write, I apply for those jobs too.
Yep.
That I post on there, and LinkedIn.
Okay.
And then people who have contacted me directly through my website. So I'm not using Upwork
Okay.
at all right now.
Okay. That's that helps me to kind of have an understanding of where your work's kind of coming from. But that, I think sometimes we make it harder than it has to be, right? That, there's the Facebook groups that people are saying, hey, I need some help, that those can be, jobs that you can get, and then you get a relationship, and then you get work in the future as well. So you mentioned like the mistake about perfectionism. So talk to me about other mistakes that you see dietitians that are trying to, right, make this their living. What mistakes do you see being made?
What I hear a lot of them tell me is, well, don't you have a degree in journalism? Don't you take a writing class? Didn't you? And no, I didn't. I don't have a degree in journalism. I have a degree in psychology, of all things, and then a master's in nutrition. But I've never taken a writing class. I got better through writing, so there's no need to spend a huge amount of money, trying to have some, degree or some, I don't know, certificate or something. I mean, I'm sure that there's things that could help, but it's not necessary to get started. And then the other thing is thinking that you need this huge profile of a bunch of previous writing clients or a crazy website. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have a website till 2 years ago. Like, I built it when my baby was born.
So prior to that, you were finding clients to write for without even having a website through other venues?
Nope, nothing.
So how did you, talk to me about the pitch process then? So I think I continually see like website building and website redesign as probably one of the biggest time like sucking things of a new business owner, that it can really take you away from what you need to be doing, because your website can take all of your time, and doesn't really generate the results. It's important to have a good website, but you can find work without having, like you just said, a website. How did you... So this is really interesting. If someone's thinking about doing this work, you don't have to spend the next 6 months creating a website. You can start today pitching. You can start today. Go grab your pitch template, and when you see someone who needs writing work, and it's something you're passionate about, just go for it, right?
Exactly. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yes.
The first job was with Smarty Pants Vitamins. That was the first writing job I ever got. And they were looking for somebody, and I said, I can do it. And I had never written a word before. Never. I didn't have anything to show them.
And that's the thing, that they can say yes. And I think that's a really great point, is that you talked about perfectionism before, that, well, I can't apply for the writing job because the long list of things that you feel that you have to do, but then the other person who's hiring, might not be on their list, right? That isn't necessarily a requirement to get that writing job.
Well, I would recommend, LinkedIn allows you to post blog posts.
Okay.
Directly on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So if you feel like you need something to show people, put it on there.
Oh, so then you could just share your LinkedIn profile for writing examples. Exactly. Got it.
Or start like the most basic free blog, free website, and post like 5 articles on there that you wrote.
Yeah, some of them allow you, a lot of the themes allow you to do a portfolio thing really easily, like not hard.
No, or ask another RD that you know if you can post something on her website. If you see somebody that, could use.
So like guest blogging of ways. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. It's actually something I had, one of the people who sells on the site did a guest blog post on RD to RD, and I thought, oh, that'd be a great opportunity. Like, to, I don't always have as much time as I'd like to write, but if it's a topic that's of interest to other dietitians, to get it out to that's a great idea of getting your work out there, is finding, especially, if you are new and you don't want to spend the next 6 months building a website.
Right.
And I think the other point you talked about before, whether you're writing under your own name or if you're writing under, you're fine with ghostwriting, it's kind of a different approach, right? Your website might look a whole lot different, so that getting out there and getting started rather than investing all this time and money in your website before you really even know how things are what you're going to enjoy more of, where the work's going to come from, just getting some stuff on LinkedIn and going for it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no point in wasting all that time, money, effort, if you can start now without anything.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, so you talked about your first writing job with Smarty Pants Vitamins. What writing job was kind of like your most, your biggest like fist bump, kind of the one you're most proud of, if you have one?
I think that it just happened at the end of last year, like 2 weeks before I had my baby. Abbott reached out to me. Just random email dropped in my inbox from Abbott. And I was like, oh. And my husband said, you have to take that job. I will literally hold the baby while you write the article because you have to have that job. And so Abbott is one of those where my articles are on their website. My name is not on them, but I write for Abbott.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Exactly. I was going to say, but I think getting, whether or not you have your name on it or not, it's a matter of what's your end goal, right? Is your end goal to write and earn money from it, or, grow, you're growing your own, brand audience and such. It's a different thing. That's actually I didn't know you wrote for Abbott. Congratulations. That's kind of a big deal, Hannah. So what resources and tools? So obviously you have a Facebook group, but what, if someone's like, okay, I want to get better at writing. Maybe they're not as natural as you. I, might want to outline things that maybe doesn't flow as easily. They're trying to improve both their writing skill and what do you recommend as far as resources and tools besides just writing, right? Getting better through practice. Where can people go?
There's people that I am obsessed with that I learn from.
Okay.
I don't know if people that are in my group probably know I'm obsessed with my dear friend Abby Peretz.
Okay.
She runs a website called Successful Freelance Mom.
And
she has taught me about 80% of the things that I know about writing, especially since my business has become more structured. So she doesn't teach you necessarily how to write as much as how to make money writing. And so she's kind of the person that I go to in terms of how figuring that out. Another person people who are great resources are Amy Gorin and Erin Polanski-Wade. They have that Master the Media, and that would be Master the Media course, and that would be more for people who do want to get their names on things. I mean both, but kind of their focus is the media,
right?
How to get your name in the media, and they have a really great course and a lot of resources surrounding that. And to be honest with you, in terms of actually getting better at writing, I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I probably should take a writing course. Probably suggest even at a community college. You can learn something from everything, and then the whole point of a writing course is you get practice and you get people to critique it. So if that's something you're interested in, maybe that's something I could even help people with if they want.
Yeah, I think, your writing group, is a place to, get better. I'm a relatively new blogger. I think I've written 12 articles. That's a lot for me, right? In the last 6 months, but it gets easier each time, right? It gets, you feel like, I think it was article number 8 or something where I was like, I'm really proud of this article. I did a really good job. I have links, I have SEO done, I actually structured it out. I did a really good job. And I think I'm still proud of numbers 1 through 7, but I think you're not going to get to number 8 unless you just write 1 through 7. You still got to do, the ones that maybe don't feel quite as good. But it's probably better than you think it is to begin with, because we're perfectionists, right?
And I look back on those first articles that I write, and I'm just like, ooh, in the very beginning, I was like, no, these are not good.
But everybody starts somewhere, right? And it's okay. I was giving the example of, it was a graphic design and images, right? I updated all of my images for some of my products and things. I was just like, horrified at the looks of the ones I used initially. But at that time, that was the very best I could do. And I was very proud of them at the time. And that to recognize that you do get better with practice, but you have to start. Just one of my favorite quotes is, just start, then refine. If we don't start, you can't get better. So I'm a big fan of just starting, even when you're not ready yet, because it kind of pushes you to get better faster, I think, than continuing to stay in this planning, getting ready phase.
And then another thing that helps me is to realize that nobody's first draft is perfect. And to think that you're going to come out of your mind this brilliant first sentence on your article about carrots and vitamin A that no one has ever come up with is just not realistic, So, and then I'll come with time.
Yeah. Do you get writer's block? Do you ever get to the point where you mentioned one article taking a long time, but do you, for the most part, just be able to sit down and just produce?
Writer's block as much as Facebook distraction. Kind of like I find I find a few sentences and then I'll it's like an automatic thing and I'll open Facebook and then I'll do that and then I'll come back and
so the distractions.
If you message me on Facebook, I'll probably respond to you within 2 minutes because there I am.
There you are. So I think I want to make sure that people get a chance to find out about all of the resources and tools. We mentioned your website, but making sure to I'll put a link to it, as well as you mentioned that you are starting to offer some coaching and specific services for dietitians. You found some resources as you were getting started in this, but taking what you've learned over the last many years and supporting other dietitians who want to work more closely with you. How would people get in touch with you if they wanted more information about you?
Right. Well, I have my website, annareisdorf.com. And also I recommend, if you're not already in my group, RDs Who Write, search RDs Who Write and come join us in my group. And I post a lot of jobs on there and resources for writers, and you can ask questions or whatever. I do have on my website, there's a little tab under the About section called Resources for RDs. And that's where you get your pitch template.
Okay.
That's a free thing that I created.
Okay.
And I am currently in the works on an ebook, which I'm going to try to get approved for CEUs on how to break into freelance writing, like the very basics.
Nice.
And I am also offering coaching. If you want to talk to me about coaching, I'm happy to talk about that. Just send me an email or private message me on Facebook. Or, I don't know, tweet me, Instagram, whatever.
You're everywhere. You're on all the social media.
Like I said, within a minute.
Yeah. So that's great. I think I always admire people who, take the time to create services and products that help people who are trying to kind of follow in the footsteps and learn. We have oftentimes so much wisdom, and not everybody can, it's not everybody's desire to step into kind of a coaching, mentoring role, but I think we have so much to learn from each other. So I'm glad you came on today and shared.
Someone helped me, so I want to help. And they got me out of the basement.
Exactly. I love being in your group. I love when you ask just the simple questions of, what are you working on this week? And I love seeing the diversity of what, dietitians' areas of specialization, and just going through that thread and clicking to some of the links or people's blogs and reading their writing. It can really serve as kind of, how to do it well.
Yeah,
by reading other people's work.
I'm always impressed with all the cool things that people are doing, I get jealous sometimes. I'm like, wow, you're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm grateful that you're in this group.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to, share about this topic of, both finding time to write or landing paid writing work?
I think don't take it personally.
Mm.
Kind of, you're going to put yourself out there. You're not going to hear back from 80% of people. They're not. You're just not. And don't take it personally. I tend to take things personally sometimes, and I'm like, oh my God, now I'm blacklisted from all websites. No one will ever want to talk to me. Don't do that.
Don't do that. So what percentage, like early on when you were like, okay, these small jobs, like, we might be like, one person says no and we're like, oh, the end of the world has happened. Like, I mean, is this like 20% of the people will respond, or how? I'm just curious, like how many no's are you going to get? How many no's is normal?
On Upwork, like, because that's where I was doing most of the stuff at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably send out 20 responses to get one.
Wow.
So
when you say you send out a response, there's a job that's being posted and you're saying, hey, check out my profile,
right.
I could be a good fit. Okay.
Exactly. So, and it's going to be like that, and it probably depends how you're getting yourself out there. Like if you're doing cold pitching,
Mm-hmm.
probably get even fewer.
Right.
Because you don't know if that person is looking for a writer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I find it a little easier to get in if you know that there's already a need.
I see. And I think the other point you brought up is that writing for other dietitians, that, as dietitians, we know we need to create high quality content, but maybe it's something we're at a point where we might want to outsource some of the writing for our business, to say, hey, I want to write and this is my area of expertise, that, there's other groups where maybe just putting yourself out there and saying, hey,
And my RD clients are probably my easiest ones to deal with.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
We're kind of on the same wavelength.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point. Well, I hope people will come to your group, RDs Who Write, as well as go grab your free pitch template. And I'll put a link to that in the comments. And next week we are off because I'm going to today's Dietitian, so I'll leave this weekend. So I'm excited to meet many people in real life. Mm-hmm. So I'll be taking off this next week, and then we'll be back the following week. We're actually going to dive into direct sales. So always talking about different ways, opportunities for dietitians making money through direct sales. So it's kind of a little divergence from the digital world, but interesting nonetheless.
Cool.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on, and we will. There's always questions that trickle in, so I'll tag you. If you have a question as you're watching this back, we usually get quite a few people who catch us on replay. Feel free to drop your questions. We'll loop back around and answer them, or just go and join Anna's group and ask her in there, or message her. She'll be happy to, I'm sure, get you an answer to your question. So
thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show today.
No problem.
All right.